Live from the 4077th MASH, delousing tent and concert hall, come the dulcet sounds of Johann Sebastian Bach. And once again with us is the greatest composer of the Western world, Jasky.
Ah, Bach.
There it is. And our very own nearsighted prepubescent Kansan with 6 toes on each foot, Wilson.
She left me for a dude named Elroy.
Oh, yeah.
Gentlemen, how are you this fine Monday evening?
I might be sick, but I don't know yet. We're gonna find out.
Might be sick.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
My throat hurts a little. You know, you got that like tingle, and your throat's a little sore, and you're like,
When did this start happening? Because I was with you at one point in the last 3 days.
Oh, this morning.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, hello, everyone. We're back. We've all recovered from the trauma that was Edwina. So, yeah. I mean, we're here for you. So
I'm not too close, though. 6 feet back. 6 feet back.
All right. Gentlemen, what have y'all been up to in the last 2 weeks? Because the last 2 weeks have been eventful. They've been exciting.
I changed an alternator in under 40 minutes.
You are very proud of that.
You're very proud of that number.
No idea
An
how
alternator
proud I am.
and a battery, if I remember correctly.
And a battery, yeah, in
And
a
a battery.
fucking Chevrolet S10 at 9 p.m. in Kansas City in the parking lot of O'Reilly's.
Okay, in the parking lot of an O'Reilly's, and you said it was like 30 degrees outside?
Yeah, probably closer to 32, but yeah.
That is such an ugly truck.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
S10?
it's not mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 2001 specifically with the single cab.
I had a single cab Chevy. That was that blue
This
one
is
with the
less
flames.
ugly.
But this
Still
one
ugly.
is infinitely worse than yours.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
In other news, I think we need to point out Jared and I, along with a couple of our friends, had a banging time. And Ethan, I'm going to say this now before I go any further. The pragmatic asshole in me outweighed the kind-hearted human being in me. We went to a live show by one of the bands I enjoy very much, and I think now some of my friends enjoy, The Longest Johns, a shanty band out of Bristol that came surprisingly close to where we live, like alarmingly close to where we live. They were going to be in San Francisco, and then they were in like a town, no joke, a 10 minutes drive from me. And I'm like, well, I can't not do this. So we got a bunch of us together. And I feel bad, Ethan, because I think when I went to buy the tickets, I'm like, Ethan's literally just moved to Kansas. There's no way he's going to buy, $600 round trip airfare to come out here for one night for this band. And I just kind of wrote it off without even asking you, I don't think. So I do apologize.
No,
But it all worked
it's-
out because
it's
you
okay.
were in Kentucky anyway.
Yep.
But-
Stealing horses.
But
In
yeah,
GTA 5 online.
In GTA 5 online. Actually, Red Dead Redemption Online would be a better... I don't think you can steal a horse in GTA, but who knows? So I'll ask real quick, Jared, how did you like The Longest John show?
The Longest Johns were an excellent performance.
Why do I sense a butt?
But the venue had no chairs.
Yeah, it was an open floor plan. You stand,
Which
and
would be
watch the
fine.
show. Yeah, but as we've discussed previously, we're all old men before our time.
I
Speak for yourself.
re-injured
I'm in
my back
prime.
a couple days prior. What was I doing? I did something I wasn't supposed to, and I re-injured my back. I can't even remember what I did. I did something. So yeah, they were wonderful. If anyone enjoys any kind of sea shantying or that kind of genre of music, old folk songs, anything like that, would highly recommend checking out The Longest Johns on all social media, I think.
Mm-hmm. They were fantastic.
They were absolutely fantastic. Excellent people. Excellent people. Just as good live as they are online.
And I will also mention, Ethan, you may not have been able to join us for The Longest Johns, but didn't you go see someone?
No, I'm going to see
You're
in
going
February.
to see.
I just bought tickets to another folk artist, very popular gentleman by the name of Gregory Alan Isakov, one of my all-time favorite songwriters, and I'm stoked about that.
Excellent.
Very
And
cool.
I'll also throw in, just because we are a podcast that talks about a piece of media, I'll talk real quick about a piece of media I saw the other day with none other than Jared. Jared and I went to see Black Panther 2 Vibranium Boogaloo, which is a much better title, in my opinion, than the one they went with, which is Wakanda Forever. But
Boy.
what do we, real quick, and I know this is a MASH podcast, and all the boomers and Gen Xers, calm down, let the millennials talk about Marvel for 10 minutes or 10 seconds, however long this goes. It won't be very long. Be calm.
We'll try to keep it under 10 minutes. Don't worry.
Go make a coffee, come back. All right. What do you think of, now that you've had a couple days to process, what do you think of Black Panther 2?
I feel like this movie's original script had to be rapidly adjusted. I feel like Marvel had an idea of what they wanted the film to be, but then upon Chadwick's passing, and I assume he informed the showrunners, or not the showrunners, but the producers for the film, that like, hey, probably not going to be around for when you guys end up making this movie, so might want to work on that. I don't know if he did or didn't. No idea. I think that gave them a very big challenge they had to deal with, because, how do you handle that? Not just in universe, but also, this is Chadwick was beloved by so many. Mm-hmm. He was I don't want to say a pillar of the community, but he was one of those people that a lot of people looked up to. He was one of those figures. And I think they handled his passing very well. I think they handled it very well. The kind of like Wakandan funeral and everything they did that honored not only his character, but also him as a person too. I think they did a very good job.
Mm-hmm. And I think this will end up weirdly working out for Marvel, because they're in this period where they're passing the mantles of a hero to the next group that's going to take it over. Because you can't have Chris Hemsworth be Thor forever. You can't have Chris Evans be Captain America forever. Like, that's not feasible for the franchise or for the actors themselves. You can't get locked into that for that long. So it's nice to see. It seems like the Iron Man role, like kind of the group leader role, is going to pass to Falcon and maybe Spider-Man, and now the Black Panther role is being passed to his sister Shuri. So that's interesting. Now I have a question, and this will be the last Marvel question I have before we get to the actual the subject of this podcast.
Allegedly,
or Jared specifically, because you're more in tune with Marvel than I think either of us, Ethan or I, are. Are you getting Marvel burnout?
Marvel burnout. I will say I have been less interested in Marvel's projects for a while. I don't know if that's purely because of them or if that's more of a personal thing. I feel like I kind of stopped being really. I feel like everything kind of peaked with Infinity War and Endgame. I feel like that was really cool, and then everything after that was kind of like, oh, neat. It's a Marvel thing. I guess I'll go see that eventually, or not. It wasn't oh my god, what's going to happen? They had a very well told story that spanned 10 plus years. They had a really good thing going, and they're kind of in the middle stage now, where they still have little projects they're working on, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah, I think it was more exciting because I saw the first Iron Man in theaters with my buddy Spencer, and I was like,
Same.
whoa, this is cool. And I think being able to see new characters get introduced and see the characters grow and develop to not goddamn them for naming the movie this, to see them grow and mature as characters and eventually get to the end game that is Endgame is cool to watch. And now that that's established, it's like, and where do we go from here?
And
I think Although,
Yeah.
with that being said, I still want to see where Tom Holland be Spider-Man. I still want to see what the Guardians of the Galaxy do. Like, I'm invested, but not quite to the same degree that I was like 5 years ago.
Yes.
So, all right. All right. Hi. Hello, audience. Audience who cares only about MASH. We're back to the MASH part now.
Coffee break is over.
You can
Get
come
back to
back.
MASH.
Come back to us. Thank you for indulging us on our Marvel talk, because genuinely, I'm interested, but also, you know, if we just talk about MASH all the time, this podcast would get really boring really quick. So thank you for indulging us. And with that, I do want to move into one piece of follow-up that was mentioned by Donut Eater 111. He noticed for Edwina, I know we said we weren't going to talk more about Edwina, but we're going to talk more about Edwina real quick. He mentioned that he never thought about the air dates of the episodes before, and the fact that Edwina aired on Christmas Eve. He said he has to wonder whose idea was that. The episode before it was Dear Dad, which was an actual Christmas episode and a better
It was a
episode
legitimate
at that.
Christmas episode.
Like,
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
someone somewhere screwed that up. But hey, at least it aired in the Christmas season. So, yay.
Yeah.
But all right. And on that
Let's stop
note,
talking about Edwina.
let's stop talking about Edwina, and we're done. Let's talk about this week's episode, Season 1, Episode 14, Love Story. Air date January 7th, 1973. Director was Earl Bellamy, and writer was Laurence Marks. Laurence Marks has written a couple of episodes of MASH that we have enjoyed thus far. He has written... Where is he at? Laurence Marks. The Moose, Yankee Doodle Doctor, Henry Please Come Home. Yeah, those are the three he's done so far, and they are reasonably well liked. I think all of those we liked fairly well. And this is Earl's first directorial debut for MASH. So, yay. Something I wanted to do, and this isn't going to be an every episode thing, just kind of every couple of episodes, if something sticks out to me, I'll mention it. But I think for me at least, and I don't know about you two, it's kind of hard to remember when this show is being aired, because it takes place in the 50s and we're watching it in 2022. So I kind of wanted to, if I saw like an interesting thing in history around the time that the episode aired, I just wanted to mention it just to kind of put us in the mindset of when people were actually watching this live. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a
there wasn't
good idea.
there wasn't anything super interesting. So I just pulled two things from roughly that time period to kind of get us in the mindset of where we are. This aired on January 7th. Way back on December 14th of 1972, the last astronaut to walk on the moon, Eugene Cernan, boarded Apollo 17 to come back to Earth. So, and then this aired on a Sunday, so Sunday, January 7th. The following Friday, the 12th, Lyndon Johnson, president of the United States and former vice president to Kennedy when he was assassinated, gave his final television interview with Walter Cronkite and would die 10 days later. So, yeah, two kind of random things, but they were the most interesting that I saw that weren't like super obscure news stories that happened around the time this episode came out. And again, not an every episode thing, but if there's something that I see that's kind of noteworthy, it kind of helps frame where we are in real-time history with the episode, I'll mention it, just because it's nice to have that frame of reference. So, yay. Yeah. Love Story. What'd you guys... After Edwina, what were you guys expecting? I guess is the question I'll ask. What... After the kind of bummer that was Edwina, what were you guys hoping for in the next episode?
I was not anticipating another banger.
Oh, really? Okay.
I feel like we dipped into just the Mariana's Trench that was Edwina, and now we're back up to like the regularly scheduled content. You know, it's a little jarring, to be honest.
Okay.
I was really expecting like right after the opening theme song, but before the meat of the story, them to just bring Hal Dresner out onto set and shoot him, just for the ultimate palate cleanser.
No,
you know,
no.
Just maybe James Sheldon coming on, like, don't worry, guys, I got this, and then.
Oh wow! Don't be mean to Hal Dresner.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to be funny, Hal. We love you.
So, our episode opens in the mess tent with Radar getting just an ungodly amount of food. My man has like at least 8 chicken legs.
He has at least 8 drumsticks. What looks like an entire is that just an entire like quarter of a pie right there on his plate?
I think that might be
an entire quarter of a pie, a big old scoop of just peas, and then a cup of coffee. I think
that's what it appears.
Can I give you guys my working theory on this and multiple other scenes?
The chicken looks really good.
I think
the chicken does look really good.
Yeah. I think when the PAs piss off the actors or the showrunners, they just take the craft services table and give it to Radar for a scene.
Well, I mean, it gets established, and it's a running thing through the whole show that Radar is just a bottomless pit of food.
No, I understand that, but I think it was only established to punish the PAs.
There you go. So immediately we can kind of sense something's up with Radar. Radar is not.
He's got an air about him.
He has an air about him. He seems bummed out. He's kind of just there. Our guys, Hawkeye and Trapper, kind of poke a little fun at him and ask him how he's doing, and he's like, I'm not in the mood, and leaves without eating anything. And I will say, it's nice to see that when Radar says he's not eating, they joke about how much he eats, but they realize, wait, Radar's not eating? That is actually kind of worrying. And I love how everyone is in tune enough to be like, hey, something's wrong with Radar. We need to talk about this.
It's fine. He's just entering his emo phase. That's all this is.
No, this whole episode is him trying to get out of his emo phase. Please, no. God, no. Which leads us to Henry. Which Henry informs us that Radar was in the fetal position on his filing cabinet and talked back to General Clayton when he didn't send the morning reports in. So Radar is
in a mood.
Radar's in a mood, and we don't know why.
He is an angry little boy right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not angry, just grouchy? Sorrowful? Edgy? Emo?
Radar the edgelord. No, I don't like that. No, negative. Margaret comes in complaining that Radar screwed up a supply requisition. Instead of surgical thread, she just got regular sewing thread, which, as I have come to learn, is not interchangeable. Unless,
it is not.
Yeah, not a good idea. So this leads them to decide to give Radar a full physical to see if is it a physical issue, is it a mental issue. So they decide to just run him through the works, give him a full physical exam, which is a series of scenes that exists, and it's interesting. It starts with him getting x-rayed while Hawkeye once again propositions a nurse rather aggressively. And
hey, who doesn't casually assault a coworker? Well, like, hey, come on now.
And I will say, this has one of the best lines from a character regarding Hawkeye, I think, in the entire series.
Mm-hmm.
And it sums up Hawkeye as wonderful and as Hawkeye is a great character. He is very attuned with other people's emotions at times. He is a very wears his heart on his sleeve type person. But this nurse nails it, that despite all that, quote, really, Hawkeye, you act like such a child at times, which, as we're going to see throughout this series, is, Hawkeye, you're a good dude, but every once in a while you just are not, nope, today is not a good day for Hawkeye. Like, and yeah, that is, I heard that line when I rewatched the episode before this, and I'm like, man, that really does encapsulate a good chunk of Hawkeye's less than wonderful moments going forward. Is, man, he really is just a child sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Oh no! Oh, I just carry on. I have more things to add. Oh boy.
Oh no! I was worried about this. I'm afraid I know exactly what scene you want to talk about.
You have no idea what I'm about to say. Please continue.
Okay. Trapper gives him a blood pressure test, and he has high blood pressure.
Pause.
Damn it, I knew it was going to be either this or something with the specimen bottles in the next scene.
So that blood pressure unit he has is also referred to as a sphygmomanometer. I believe I said that somewhat correctly.
I don't think you did at all.
Did you say sphygmomanometer?
Hold on, let me sphygmomanometer. It's a mouthful.
That is my new favorite word.
Sphygmomanometer. I don't know. It's so many letters in not orders they should be.
It's the scientific term for blood pressure cuff, and it was in my interview, which is why I know it. I knew it beforehand because on prep sheets they would put, 10. Hang on. Sphygmomanometers. I was close. Sphygmomanometers. Allow me to provide you gentlemen with the spelling of this monstrosity. There you go.
Oh God! Yeah.
For anyone curious, please just ask your phone to search. Hang on.
I'll put it on screen for the video viewers.
Sphygmomanometer.
Sphygmomanometer. I feel
you can have
like
a little
we
Google
hear
voice
that
to the
word.
sound effect.
I feel like we hear that word later in the series at some point. I just can't remember where.
Wonderful. So
I think Hawkeye says he gets turned on when a nurse pumps her sphygmomanometer.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah,
that's a great line.
That is honestly, that is a pretty great line.
Wait, I know. I just remembered what episode it's in, but anyway, continue.
Okay, so that's sphygmomanometer. Jesus, unit that Trapper has there. We have the same ones at Sierra because we also have medical equipment from the 60s, just like the show did. That exact same back, because it's facing us. It's a little tin, and the actual blood pressure readout thing is in the back of that, and it's mercury. It's a little. It's a little like thermometer looking thing filled with mercury. And as you squeeze it, it shows you the blood pressure. Yeah, it's all very lovely. We had one of those just shatter one time.
Oh, so you just had
which is bad
in the
because
lab.
Mercury. And then we had the question of, hang on, we're not supposed to have this. How do we get rid of it? Because now it's just, incredibly toxic, can seep through material, heavy metal. That's very dangerous to get on your skin.
So, a little behind the scenes, I got to see Jared's workplace the other day. It looks like the room where the PAs, like we talked about in Edwina, it looks like the place where the production assistants go when someone's like, we need this to look sciencey. Go grab the science.
Go grab the science. I live where
full of science.
I work in the room of the science where the science is kept. That is correct.
We had to go through like 3 doors with like biohazard symbols and like, if you enter here, you will die. And I'm like, where are we going?
Yeah, OSHA requires us to warn you of any carcinogens or anything like that. So yeah, you might get cancer now. Sorry.
Just a little cancer, Bobby. A little cancer never hurt anyone.
There's also asbestos in the ceiling, but we don't talk about that. I wish I was joking. Anyway, yeah, that's just a fun little anecdote. That those things are ancient, they are legitimate, and they probably have mercury ones on set. And yeah, don't play with mercury, kiddos.
Don't play with mercury, but it's so shiny.
It's okay. I'm gonna be honest. It's very fun to play with mercury. It is.
No, you're not supposed to.
It is very fun to play with mercury.
Dude,
on
it's
the other
one of
hand,
the coolest things you'll ever
play
do.
with mercury.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't play with it.
Sounds an awful lot like the drug talk I got at my school.
Same.
You'll see worlds you can't even imagine, but don't do it.
All your friends are going to pester you, but
psilocybin was just made legal in Colorado, by the way, on a completely unrelated note, just for anyone who's curious.
Yeah.
Great. More words I can't spell. Moving on.
Mushrooms. Magic mushrooms. There you go. Anyway, moving right along to Radar peeing into a cup.
Wonderful. Wait, did he drop it and it broke? Is that what happened in the scene?
Yes. He was nervous.
Oh, it's glass.
Yes.
Oh. Ooh. That implies reusability. Oh. No. Oh, God.
Look at all them beakers on set. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they got science in the background. I see it.
They got science in the background.
Yep. This is a science scene.
And I love Hawkeye hears it break and just grabs another one and just hands it over. He's like, I can't even believe.
Specimen cups now are plastic because why wouldn't they be?
So they determined that Radar is physically fit As Hawkeye says, healthy enough to be in the army. And I don't know. I have two questions about the swamp scene before we get into the actual plot part of it. Number one, was anyone else thrown off by the crane shot? Like
just a little bit,
roof down. It's such a weird angle to film this scene in.
It also really just enforces how tiny radar is, which I think is what they were going for.
Okay, fair point. Fair
like,
point.
Look at all these normal dudes and look at tiny radar. He's even hunched over. He has made himself as small as possible, which honestly, beautiful. This shows how small and childlike he is. Excellent.
Okay, you've turned me around because I was weirded out by the top-down scene.
It's weird because they've never done it before, but they've also never really had a reason to do it before.
And I'm looking at it now, and just for reference, this is on my 1080p TV screen that I'm using as a second monitor because don't judge me.
Accuracy, good.
Does this scene look higher quality to anyone else than the rest of the episode? Like, it's still like 1970s quality, but it just something about it. I don't know if it's the lighting. I don't know if it's because we're looking at this weird angle.
I think it's just different for you, for your eyes. That just the fact that it's different makes you want to say it's better. Just because if it's different, then it might be better.
Well, because I even during this scene, I even moved it to my other monitor, which is the better quality monitor, the 1440 monitor, and it just something about this scene sticks out to me as, I don't know if they're using a different camera. I don't know. It looks like it's either better quality or if it's been like upscaled, like digitally. I don't know what it is.
They might have used a different camera for this. It's possible. The details look the same to me.
Maybe it's just me. But anyway, so the Trapper and Hawkeye are trying to get radar to open up and figure out what's up. Frank is being absolutely no help at all.
He is being aggressively Frank.
He's being the JROTC kid in school that you asked you to be friend.
God, he is.
Yeah.
I love the little monologue he starts and Hawkeye just shuts him down. Listen, soldier, we're all in this together with a common goal. Like, he goes on this like super McCarthyism to serve our country and repel the godless horde from the north that would engulf our very way of life. And Hawkeye's just like, stop. You're making me sick.
Frank,
please.
In a split second, shat out a soapbox and leapt onto it and was just ready. And Hawkeye very quickly kicked him off of it. My God. That godless horde from the north.
Godless horde.
Or as I call them, Nebraskans.
I was going to say Canadians. I was waiting for it. Yes, Nebraskans. So, yeah. So Frank storms off in a huff, as Frank is to do.
Quick side note. One thing that caught my eye. Frank, in response to Hawkeye saying godless horde, says nerds to you, which I found to be very strange. As in, what the hell does that mean? I Googled it, and it was just slang at the time for just that's annoying, basically. So nerds to this, or nerds to that, nerds to you was very common.
And even Trapper's like, nerds? What?
Yeah, so I guess even in the 70s, it was like old-timey, ye olde. It's also, my subtitles are wrong. It has nerds with a Z. Apparently, it's supposed to be with an S.
Oh, good Lord.
Fun little side along there. Nerds.
Another side note, the chair Radar is sitting in, the Adirondack chair made out of pallet wood. Low-key kind of want to make a couple of those. Like,
pallet wood is not comfortable wood.
Okay, maybe not out of pallet wood, but I do like me a good Adirondack chair.
That's a good camp project, and I feel like it fits very well in the scene.
Yes.
Oh, I would love to know if they made those pallets from just pallets on set and just
probably.
Toss it in
I'm sure
there.
they had
the
a prop
guy's
guy.
Just like They're like, hey, make us a chair out of stuff, and he's like, oh, we got pallets.
Because it feels like that's something like, hey, Sergeant what's his nuts over there, is pretty good at carpentry. Let's take some of these junk pallets and have him make us some chairs, and we'll get him some booze or something. Like,
if you look at like they have the cuts down pretty well. If you look at like the armrests of the chairs, like it fits seamlessly with the backrest. Like there's some legitimate carpentry skills. It's not just hammers and nails together. Like it's
Again, thumbs up on the set dressing always on this show.
Big thumbs up on the sets. Yes.
So they asked Radar, come on, what's wrong now that Major Doofus is out of here?
Mm-hmm.
And Radar pulls, first of all, he has this tiny little record in his breast pocket, assumedly all the time. How has he not broken that thing yet? And it's not even, it's just bare. It's not even in a sleeve. It's just, he's just got it.
Skill issue.
All right. Well, so they
sometimes plot armor does not only extend to characters.
So we learn many things in the next minute and a half.
We meet Mary Sue's cousin, Linda.
What?
Mary Sue,
Linda
generic
Sue.
female
Linda,
character.
Yeah,
Linda Sue. Yeah.
Linda
I
Sue.
feel like that was intentional.
Linda Sue, who is apparently Radar's fiance, which, okay.
They were engaged.
Sent a message via the glass booth at Holman's department store. Is that it?
Holtzman's, I think.
Holtzman's department store, to inform him that since they're engaged, he should be the first to know that she's gonna marry Elroy Thimple. And I'm like, God damn, that's fucked up.
The fact that Radar lost out to a man named Elroy Thimple.
That's the most Midwest name.
It's a horrible name, but Mrs. sounds so nice in front of it.
Shut up. We weren't gonna.
For real, though, this is the first instance of anyone named Elroy getting any strange.
So yeah, she informs him that they're gonna be married, and then Elroy comes on, which just pours salt on the wound, Linda. Jesus. And Elroy's not bothered. Hi, old buddy. Keep knocking off them commies. Oh, and then, yeah, that is... First, backtracking. How mind-boggling of a concept would it be in, like, the 50s to be able to send a recording of yourself halfway around the world to someone like that? Like, I'm sure when, like get into a glass booth at your local store, record yourself on a small vinyl disc, and you can mail it to anybody. I feel like saying that nowadays is like, okay, so what? I can email someone in Tokyo in like 3 minutes with like the barest amount of effort. But I think, I don't know. I feel like we forget, like, yeah, shit like that was the peak of technology and mind-boggling not that long ago.
Yes. It was a very different time. Yeah, the internet was not a thing.
The internet was not a thing, which, and I'm sure this will come up many, many times in many different episodes of MASH, the cell phone really do fuck up a lot of movie plots.
Yeah, kind of does. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's another conversation for another time. So they get done with, as Trapper calls it, the Dear John recording. And Hawkeye and Trapper are just flabbergasted, like, what the actual hell is this woman thinking? But they turn to Radar to comfort him. And I always thought Radar had fallen asleep.
Nope.
No, he's laying there in, like, paralyzed. And I didn't realize it until I had paused it on this scene to look up something. And my man is just wide-eyed. He's just comatose with his eyes wide open. And I don't like that. I do not like, I don't. Please, I don't want a picture of it. Please don't send me a picture. You sent me a picture of it. All right. I did not realize his eyes were open until I paused it on the scene, and that makes it so much more sad.
My man is doing the 1,000-yard stare directly into his past. Yep. He is questioning all of his life choices right now. Radar. So, Hawkeye and Trapper think similar. Again, I hate to bring it up. Similar to the Edwina thing, where they're not looking for someone to be in a long-term relationship with Radar. They just want someone to say, "Hey, would you take an evening and just notice Radar and show him some affection? Just cheer him up a little, like, Jesus. Look at him. He looks like a kicked puppy.
and no one is all that enthused. Nurse Cutler is not enthused because she already has a date with Hawkeye. You remember Nurse Cutler, the one Trapper fought for?
Yep. Yep.
She's dating Hawkeye now.
Yep.
Trapper tries to get another nurse in on it. She is absolutely not for it, so he steals her towel, which, okay.
As one does.
And then
wait,
Hawkeye
he doesn't steal her towel. It's still hanging up there. He just throws her like a fucking piece of paper or something, or like a rag. He throws a rag at her instead of the towel.
Oh, that'll teach her.
Yeah.
Oh, he does. Yeah, you're right. She asked for her towel, and he just throws her a rag.
A rag at her. Yeah.
Okay.
He's not quite that of a quite that big of an ass.
Quite that mean.
Yeah.
Hawkeye tries to convince another nurse, and through his description of the evening, ends up turning them both on, and they start making out. Which, again, Hawkeye might be a child at times, but he certainly do have a way with the whammon.
He speaks the language of the nurse.
He speaks the language.
He speaks the language of the MASH nurse.
Good Lord. So they inform Radar that no one was available. Everyone was busy, and Radar's just like,
We just thank them for trying, at least.
He thanks them for trying, and he says he struck out in the World Series of Love, to which Hawkeye and Trapper kind of look at each other, and Hawkeye is just like, just suffer. Don't write. Don't just
no talk. Just suffer. Yeah.
Listen, you can be a sad sack, but oh my God, keep the poetry to yourself.
Oh, what's this? Deus Ex Nurse?
Deus Ex Nurse arrives.
Thank you, Random Jeep Man. Very cool.
Pack it up, boys. The nurse is a redhead. Don't touch that one with a 10-foot pole.
So
Radar?
Oh, no.
Don't do it.
So I went to turn the page on my notes for this next section, and I forgot a note I wanted to mention. Trapper has one of the best punchlines to a joke in this episode when Hawkeye asks him, essentially, what makes a lovelorn man feel better? And Trapper responds, heavy alimony, which that's funny. I like that. Alimony, for those who don't know, being the payment one receives after a divorce. Yeah. So enter Lieutenant Louise Anderson, played by Kelly Jean Peters. This will be Kelly's only episode of MASH. She is, again, another one of those actresses who kind of is all over the place through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. She was in an episode of Bonanza, a couple episodes of Gunsmoke, Little House on the Prairie. She was in Poltergeist 2, randomly. So yeah, just another one of these kind of everywhere actors and actresses that they brought in to play a character. Radar is, as they say in The Godfather, he is hit with the thunderbolt. He is immediately stricken by Lieutenant Anderson.
You ever heard the AC/DC song Thunderstruck?
Yes.
That's what Radar is right now.
Yes, exactly.
Radar's not home at the moment. He's on. He'll be back in a couple minutes.
Yeah. I love when their little moment of when she goes to grab his luggage and he can't let go of it, and she's like, "Corporal, your hand." He's like, "Oh, that is okay. I am not using it at this time." It's like, okay, Radar, I need you to focus. I need to take a breath. Stop being weird. And she goes away, and again, very attentive to their surroundings. Hawkeye and Trapper are like, oh no. So immediately the plan is hatched to try to get Lieutenant Anderson hooked up with Radar, which is going to prove difficult because, as Hawkeye says, she has a brain. She is not dumb. She is very, I don't want to say she's hoity-toity, but she has a taste for music and art that Radar cannot possibly hope to match. Hawkeye goes and greets her and tries to kind of lay the moves on her and get her in the direction of Radar. And I will give them credit. They did not make Lieutenant Anderson completely dumb. She is completely aware of who Hawkeye is and his intentions and his motives, and she is not
Good.
She's not. She's like, okay, Hawkeye. Like, even as he's reading out like the poets that she has books of and the albums from famous composers she has, she's like rolling her eyes, like, okay, yep, you don't know who half these people are. Oh, at least you got their names right. Let's get to the end of this charade. But she consents to meet, go to the mess tent, meet everyone, ends up meeting Radar, but not before Hawkeye and Trapper give Radar a little pep talk and prep him. And oh dear God, the advice they give Radar is...
Yikes.
I mean, it kind of works, but so I can't be upset about it. So they tell him that they give him some books to read to kind of help him fake it, the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, which they hand him one book, but to my knowledge, the decline and fall of the Roman Empire is like a 6-volume set of books. Am I wrong? It's like this whole like treatise that this professor wrote about the history of Rome, and it's literally like an encyclopedia of everything about Rome's history. So I don't know how he's going to read that in a day, but Deus Ex Radar, why not? War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, and he's confused by how he can write War and Peace. And then they get to the composers, and I think this alone is why this episode is remembered so fondly by people. It's one of those MASH episodes, and we'll get into this a little later. I like this episode. I think people tend to overhype this episode in their memory because of one singular line in this entire episode. Bach. I feel like that has stuck in so many people's brains so much.
Yeah.
Bach. And it's genuinely hilarious every time Radar does it, because he overdoes it. But I feel like that has kind of falsely elevated this episode. And I know people are going to hate me for saying that, but so it is. But Hawkeye tells them, if you hear, if she says anything, talking about Shostakovich or Tchaikovsky, just look bored. But if she mentions Bach, just go, Bach. I did ask, when I asked the audience for their opinion on this episode, I did ask them a question that I will pose to you guys. And I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of faith that you guys will have an answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Don't have any faith in me at any time.
Oh, there. Yeah. Anyway, I'm neither going to confirm nor deny that. Johann Sebastian Bach, a German composer from 1685 to 1750, considered one of the greatest composers of Western music. Do you guys have a favorite piece of music by Bach, or can you even name a piece of music by Bach?
For Elise is Off Limits.
All right. I think Jared and I are both about to do the exact same thing. Don't say anything yet.
Let's just move on. Let's just move on. Bach's great. Let's move on.
St. Matthew Passion is.
You just Googled. You just Googled.
You can't prove that.
Who wrote for Elise?
Yes, I can.
Who wrote for Elise? Ethan?
That's a great question.
That'd be Ludwig van Beethoven. So already.
Beethoven.
So I did a little bit of research, and here's the terrible thing about classical music. Number one, this will not be the last time by a long shot that we'll be discussing classical music on this podcast, and most people who are listening to this podcast will know why. Secondly, classical music is dumb for one reason alone. Songs don't have titles. They aren't called things. They're called what piece and movement they are, which is terrible. So one of the few that actually has a name that people might recognize by Bach is the Toccata in Fugue in D minor. This is your stereotypical evil villain organ music, da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na, which I'm going to be a simpleton and say that is probably my favorite piece of Bach's music, just because I know
it's the most recognizable.
It's the most recognizable. There's also, and I'll play little clips of this in the episode, so it's not just me reading off names that are meaningless to people. Pieces of music that people would recognize by hearing it. Toccata and Fugue. The unaccompanied cello suite number 1 in G major. Herz und Mund und Tat und Leben. Jesu, Joy of Men. And the Brandenburg Concerto. So yeah, now we all have a little bit better appreciation for Bach and can go listen to some of his music. Radar, on the other hand, does not. So you really did say for Elise, didn't you? I'm sorry, I can't get over that.
You can't prove that. It's not like there's a recording of it.
You just said the first piece of classical music that you thought.
Oh yeah, I absolutely did.
You had a good chance of it being Bach too.
You
had a good chance.
Bach, Mozart, or Beethoven. Like, you just threw that dart and hope it landed in the right place.
No, I absolutely mixed up Beethoven and Bach because of the bees. That's 100% what happened.
Anyway, I am so lost in the sauce right now. Yes, the mess tent. So they meet in the mess tent with Lieutenant Anderson. They start talking, and Radar starts using some of the, I'll call it, advice that he is given by Hawkeye and Trapper. And it's just enough. It's just enough to pique Lieutenant Anderson's interest and get her to start talking to Radar more. But he does overdo it a little bit. Like, he just keeps saying, Bach, randomly. She starts to say
once you
something.
said it once, you said it all.
Once you said it, you said it all. Bach. And even after Hawkeye tries to cover for him, he's like, Bach. And Hawkeye's like, knock it off.
Okay, shut up, Radar.
Shut the fuck up, Radar.
All that.
You know, the thing that I find interesting about Bach, that's highly significant.
I haven't said it yet.
I have confidence in you, Lieutenant.
I have confidence in you, Lieutenant. Radar is trying so hard. And much like Ethan just throwing out for Elise, I can't be upset with the confidence of the man.
Not at all.
He's just
going for it.
I feel I have tools. I have tools at my disposal that I've been given, and I'm just going to use all of them at once.
He's swinging all the hammers. He's throwing all the darts right now.
Look, in universe, Trapper and Hawkeye are the biggest operators in this unit. I mean, they are notorious womanizers, so much so that this new nurse knew about them before she came to the MASH unit, and they gave poor Radar this advice. Mm-hmm. I almost feel like they just wanted to watch him fail.
Maybe. So they start talking to each other, which sets a whole nother series of problems in motion, because Frank and Margaret are not fans of officers fraternizing with enlisted personnel. It is technically, and this is true, against regulations for several reasons. Mostly the whole, power dynamic there. Not a good idea to have a relationship between officers and enlisted for that reason. But also, they're just prudes and want to enforce Army regulations whenever they can because, it turns them on or whatever.
At the same time, rules for thee, not for me.
Well, they're both officers. It's perfectly fine.
It's perfectly fine.
It's perfectly fine.
That's how that works.
So, as she starts going off on her little rant about Bach, and Radar is enthralled, I do like that Hawkeye and Trapper are just like, and
time to go.
We're just gonna let this go. Radar's got this. And then we get Margaret being very upset.
We get incoming hot lips missile.
Yep. She's upset because Radar and Lieutenant Anderson are quote unquote dating now, it seems, or interested in each other. And Henry's just like, why are you upset at this? What if they're in love? And she's like, that's not important. And he's like, what? No. What? and she's worried that this affair is going to go too far. And even Henry's like, Radar can't possibly keep this up forever. Like, Lieutenant Anderson's going to figure out Radar is, as he says, a nearsighted prepubescent corporal with 6 toes on each foot. Like, and they have a point. Like, this is not meant to be a love at first sight forever story. This is just to get Radar some of his confidence back for being dumped by his fiance. It's not Margaret's just being excessively Margaret, which, you know, more power to her. Why not? I do love that Hawkeye mentions that without love, they're just 89 cents of chemicals walking around, and Henry has the moment of reflection of, my marriage is only $1.78, which, aw.
Oh, Henry.
Oh, Henry. Margaret does have a point, however, where she is responsible for the nurse's conduct, and therefore, and Henry, by extension, is responsible for the enlisted men's conduct. Like,
that's where Hot Lips has a point, but in everything else she says, I no longer care that she has a point. She's ruined it.
You're technically right, but you're being a bitch, so you're right.
Volta.
Oh, wait. What does that mean again?
It's the German word for you're not wrong, you're just an asshole. Volta's Obscherkeit.
Volta's, I can't remember how to say it now. I like that. You're not wrong, you're just an asshole. And Hawkeye gets a little jab of how many more physicals are you and Major Burns going to do together? You know, like, yeah, rules for thee, but not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hawkeye has the great idea of, well, if Radar and Lieutenant Anderson can't get to know each other,
if they can't canoodle, then no one can canoodle.
No one can canoodle, which, weirdly, is very similar.
God damn it, shut up.
To another episode we've discussed. Which, now that I'm realizing,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, so Hawkeye throws that idea out, and Henry's like, I love it. I didn't know anything about it. I will deny any complicity with or knowledge of, but I love it. So the series of events to keep Margaret and Frank away from each other ensues. With Radar's help, they keep calling them away to different tasks whenever they seem to be getting lovey-dovey with each other. Culminating in Frank tries to sneak out to visit Margaret in her tent. Radar gets Margaret to go to post-op, which there's a little moment in post-op that I wanted to point out. The post-op has been left in charge of a sergeant, which would not be the case. It would be left in charge of a nurse who would at least be a lieutenant. They would have to be an officer. It would not be left in charge of someone who is just an orderly, because theoretically that sergeant is the same rung on the ladder as Klinger medical-wise. Mm-hmm. He's not, unless he has some stateside vocation that would make him more knowledgeable, like if he were a
like a PA or an RN or something.
A male nurse, RN, physician's assistant, surgical technician, you know, something in the civilian life that would give him more knowledge, but that maybe he wasn't in the army for, if that makes sense. Like, you can be a dentist and be drafted as an infantryman. Like, you don't have to be the profession that you are outside the war. But it's just, I think it's just not a continuity error, but just an error in the writers not knowing that, because they're not super deep into the military or medical stuff in season 1. They get some stuff right, but it's little things like, again, I think I said this in the very first episode of the podcast, where they get a lot of medical stuff right, but they kind of flub the military stuff because it's not quite as important most of the time. So just something I noticed. But all this plotting works. It gets Margaret and Frank to the point where they can't stand it anymore. Margaret runs back to her tent to meet up with Frank, only to realize that Hawkeye and Trapper have snuck into her bed, and they finally make the ultimatum: we'll stop if you stop. Let Lieutenant Anderson and Radar have their little fling.
Let the kids be
and
kids.
let the kids be kids. And it works, and they leave him alone, and we get the button scene where Radar and Lieutenant Anderson are in a long conversation about Bach and his music, and Trapper and Hawkeye are happy to see that Radar and her getting along. And then they realize Radar has fallen asleep while listening to this woman. And they push him awake, and what does he scream? But, Bach. To which everyone starts laughing, and Lieutenant Anderson kind of leans over and gives him a little, like, pinch on the cheek, which makes me think, did she pick up on what was going on and just was humoring?
Absolutely.
I think she absolutely picked up on what was going on and just is like, man, because I'm sure
this is a nice kid. Yeah,
I'm sure what happened behind the scenes, what we didn't see, was she went back from that first mess tent conversation like, I met this really interesting dude, Radar. And all the other nurses like, oh my God, honey, sit down. And because they propositioned every nurse to go out, like, I'm sure word got to her like, look, Radar got dumped by his fiance. He's feeling bad. They're trying to set him up with someone. Humor the poor kid for a couple days with you. Which, if that's what happened, to her credit, thank you, Lieutenant Anderson, for helping our most special boy.
I'm sure if, they don't work out, she could be a very good friend to Radar eventually.
Yes.
This wasn't her only appearance.
Yeah. This was her only appearance, which isn't bad. I think, again, I don't have a problem with a character coming up in as a one-off as long as they write them well. And I think Edwina could have been better than she was. I don't think there's anything exceptionally great or exceptionally bad with Lieutenant Anderson. She is a device of the plot. She is fleshed out enough to make the plot work, and they don't make her a laughing stock like they did Arlene Galanka's character. So I perfectly fine with that. Would it have been nice to see her more? Yes. Did we get to see her more? No. I'm not upset. So yeah, that is Love Story. You're okay. You can be a little upset. That's Love Story. And like I said last week, it is the beginning of a little bit of a more naive Radar, which is nice. He still has a couple scenes, especially when they're like messing with Frank and Hot Lips, where he seems a little bit more like version 1.0 of Radar, but he's slowly transitioning to the more naive Iowa farm boy Radar that we know. So, or that we will get to know. So with that, that is Love Story. What did you guys think? How we feeling?
Good. Yeah. I liked the episode. It just seemed like a nice solid episode. Got a lot of Radar moments. It was not entirely centered around Hawkeye, which was neat.
Good. Yes, this is good.
It just seemed like a solid episode. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Wilson, what about you? What are your as a Midwestern boy yourself, how do we feel about Radar's plight?
With Elroy.
Look, I've met a couple of Elroys, and however you're picturing them is exactly correct. Overall,
oh no.
I was picturing kind of like a square 2x4 with like a mop.
Well, I don't know why you picture 2x4s as sentient beings, but we can.
No, Elroy is a 2x4 with a mop for hair. That's what I'm picturing.
Oh, well, you're not wrong. Just add some beard. But that aside, I love any episode where Trapper gets to feel like more of Hawkeye's equal instead of his sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. Where they were in bed together. Who are you? You don't know me. I followed you home from the movie theater. I thought that was pretty funny. So yeah, good episode. Good episode.
Yeah, I'm sure the MASH fanfic writers, if they exist, please don't Google it again, had a field day with that. Stop. I heard the keyboard click. Knock it off. I'm warning you right now. I will pull the plug on this. Okay. Let me give out some audience ratings, and then we'll get our ratings real quick. Chief Smash Forever on Twitter. A good episode to get back in the groove after the last episode. This is the beginning of Wholesome Radar, which honestly, as a longtime fan of the show, is the best Radar. Very good moments of Trapper and Hawkeye giving Radar pointers. When I hear Bach, I think of this episode. Oh, good. 3.5 out of 5. This lightsaber kills fascists 3 out of 5. Good lines and beats. I can see this as the start of the softening of Radar as a character. But the show is still kind of stuck to the feel of the movie and is not quite yet becoming its own thing. Yeah, it's not going to happen all at once. It's going to happen a little bit at a time. And this is the start of it. John Weirness agrees with the inconsistent tone of the season regarding Radar, but this is a good beginning of changing his character a little bit. He is the only person that mentioned their favorite Bach piece, and his favorite is the Little Fugue. I like that.
The Little Fugue.
As opposed to the Great Fugue.
Mm.
Carrie A, 3 out of 5. Like this episode much more than the last one. The last act with the guys versus Margaret and Frank is funny and helps elevate the episode. Agree. Donadeer says 3, a fun Radar episode. Love seeing Trapper and Hawkeye try to help him. Winning over Lieutenant Anderson walks the line between funny and awkward, but it works. It would have been nice to have Radar realize it's good. That he shouldn't pretend to be someone he's not. Yeah, they could have had the little moral message at the end of, hey, don't be something you're not. But I think they have other episodes with Radar where they do that, and we'll get to them. Because that is a constant theme of Radar where he once he becomes the full naive farm boy, he has a lot of little moments throughout the series where he tries to quote unquote better himself or, do something manly and the message of all those is almost always like, Radar, you're perfect. Don't change. But 2.8 out of 5. 2.8 out of 5. Not really a standout episode except for Bach and some weird camera angles in the swamp. Gary Berghoff is always terrific. That's Chad Smith, and that kind of mirrors like my detractor points of this episode, where it's like weird. It's not it's a good episode, but it doesn't stand out other than the one or two good lines or good jokes. So, with that all being said, where do you guys stand on this episode?
I think I just give this one a nice solid 4 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah. It's good. It's not perfect. It's not excellent. It's not amazing. It's not average. It's good.
It's good. Wilson, what about you? What's your rating for this episode?
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a little further down, and I think about a 3.2.
3.2.
It's a good episode, and it's funny, but I think that when I'm looking back on season 1, this is not going to be the ones that immediately comes to mind. Just a little bit forgettable. It's good, and I will watch it again, but it's never going to be my favorite.
Okay. For me, like I said, I think this is a good episode. I like Radar in it. I like Trapper and Hawkeye in it. It's not the greatest episode of MASH. It's not the worst episode of MASH. I do think, and I know there are people that are going to not agree with me on this 100%. I do think it tends to be a little more fondly remembered, specific because it has like that one funny line of Bach that people quote constantly when the need arises in different MASH Facebook pages I've seen, yada, yada, yada. There's this and a couple other episodes that are just referenced so much because of their like one line or their one little gag in the episode that seems to make it stick out in people's minds as a great episode, when in reality it's just kind of an okay episode. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. So yeah, that'll do it for Love Story. Is there anything else you guys want to mention before we get out of here? Go listen to some Bach.
Listen to some Bach.
Go find some nice Bach to listen to.
I miss Ho-John.
Don't play with Mercury.
I miss Ho-John. Oh no! Don't play with Mercury. That's also a good ending note. Yep. Next episode is another episode, in my opinion, that gets a little overly fondly remembered for just being an okay episode, and that is Tuttle. That is the next episode, right? I didn't just completely fuck that up.
Yep, that's correct.
It's Tuttle. Yep.
To be honest, I
And
thought
we-
it was Turtle, but I guess it's Tuttle.
Nope. It is
All right.
Tuttle. It is Tuttle. I can tell you for
Yep.
certain it is
It's Tuttle.
Tuttle.
I am less excited for the episode because it's not named Turtle.
You thought it was Turtle. I am sorry to say there will not be a turtle in the next episode.
It's Tuttle.
I'm already disappointed.
Some might
He's
even
got
say
the
there.
back pay.
Some people might say there's not even a Tuttle, but we'll get there. And with that, we have been Anthony, Jared, Ethan. This has been the Best Care Anywhere podcast. Find us on find us on Twitter, but for no reason in particular, I'm going to specifically say we're also other places. For no particular reason, I just feel like I should throw that out there. We're on Instagram and Facebook. You can find us on email. We also post these podcasts to YouTube. There's no particular reason why I'm saying don't go to Twitter to find us, but just in case something happens to Twitter, maybe go follow us other places. No reason, just throwing that out there. And if there's any other places you think, man, this would be a good place to, have these guys promote their podcast that isn't Twitter. Again, for no particular reason. We'd love to know. Please email us, bestcareanywherepod@gmail.com. Again, no particular reason. Please don't hurt me, Elon. Just, making sure people know where to find us. Uh-huh.
Daddy
Hydrate
must
or
be
dihydrate.
merciful.
All right, we're out of here. Yep.
Why would you say that? He controls my internet. Why would you say that?
I'm sorry, Elon. Don't hurt me.
Why?
Take his internet, but don't hurt me.
The time has come for us to say sayonara.